Hello, I'm Claire Jewitt, and this is the Diary of an Orange Cat. The diary entries of a thoughtful, slightly neurotic ginger cat named Weasley, written from a small harbour community in New Zealand. In the last episode, Weasley began to uncover something unexpected about his past and his place in the world. In today's diary entry, a new presence enters the group, Whittaker, a Burmese cat known for his quiet wisdom and unusual perspective on life. A cat who believes that fear can be transcended and purpose can be discovered, and that within each of us lies something far greater than we realise. All of which sounds perfectly reasonable, until it involves walking calmly past a very large dog. And now, Weasley's diary. Before continuing with my diary entries, I feel I should say something about this life coaching. I'd always assumed that, as a cat, my primary responsibilities were to eat, sleep, and maintain a reasonable level of personal dignity. Apparently this is no longer sufficient. It has recently been suggested that I should be setting goals, confronting fears, and most alarmingly of all, awakening a lion within. I must confess that I find this deeply concerning. For a start, I'm not a lion, and even if I were, I'm not entirely convinced that awakening it would improve matters. Monday, 7th of January 2019. Ron, Squeak and Hypo arrived early for our weekly choir practice this evening. I shouldn't really say Hypo, as she's now known as Snowflake. Mummy reported her to the Diamond Harbour Cat Rescue Group, who came round and picked her up from underneath the house and found her a loving forever home. Her once matted fur is now soft and clean, and she wears a brand new blue collar that matches her eyes. Even though her name tag says Snowflake, Ron still insists on calling her Hypo. We'd all been hoping Seraphina would make an appearance this evening. None of us had seen hide nor hair of her in nearly a week, leaving us all a little worried. "I think Seraphina's been spending quite a lot of time at the pub," said Hypo in her vague, faraway voice. This had to be one of Hypo's hallucinations. I couldn't imagine Seraphina whiling away her time in a bar somewhere. But less than an hour later, I was proved wrong. "I've done it!" she announced triumphantly as she bounced up energetically to the 4 furry figures on the deck. I'd come to dread this sort of statement from Seraphina, but before I could open my mouth, she said, "I've been hanging around at the pub, just waiting for the chance to talk to him." This sounded very un-Seraphina-ish. Hanging around a bar, waiting for an opportunity to talk to a mere male who couldn't even catch his own dinner without female assistance. Seraphina continued breathlessly, "And he's agreed to give a keynote address tonight." This seemed to have sent such violent shivers down her spine that she suddenly felt the need to sit down and aggressively lick the lower part of her back. Squeak, who I suspect misunderstood the meaning of the word keynote, said, "But it's Monday today and we've got choir practice." Seraphina spat out a grey ball of fur. Her eyes started to water and I wondered if I should attempt the Heimlich manoeuvre. "Are you all right?" I said, and gestured towards my water bowl. She had a mouthful and seemed to rally a little. "Who is this keynote speaker? He's not that dog friend of yours, is it?" No, she said once she'd fully recovered. "It's Whittaker, and he's sort of life coach. I'm related to him in a roundabout way. Not a blood relative, of course." She giggled in a high-pitched, girlish manner. "He's Burmese." "I'd just as soon have the dog," said Ron grumpily. "We don't want some mentalist from Burma coming to tell us how to run our lives. I've never liked those Asian breeds. Too fancy for their own good, if you ask me." "Ron!" scolded Seraphina, silencing him an instant. "No one did ask you, and I'll have you know that Burmese are a highly intelligent breed. We can learn a lot from Whittaker. He's really been there, you know. Some of the places he's been and the things he's done. He can even do tricks and retrieve toys like a dog." Her voice trailed away as she realised that no one was particularly interested in learning how to perform tricks like a dog. Great, I said without enthusiasm. Perhaps he can return the stolen goods that are stashed under the house. I've gone to a lot of trouble to organise this event for you. Serafina looked around the group sternly, sounding more like a schoolteacher by the minute. His talk is entitled Awaken the Lion Within. In this workshop, he explains how to confront and break through your fears and uncertainty, identify your objectives, and turn your dreams into reality. He said that before the event we should think about what we want most in our lives. The workshop will include a challenge that will help us conquer our fears and awake our inner lion. To my surprise, the others actually seemed quite enthusiastic about this. Serafina led the charge by saying that she wanted to raise funds and awareness for SPUNC so that one day there would be no homeless cats in the village. Squeak talked excitedly about losing weight, and Hypo wanted to overcome her addiction to stealing toys. Even Ron had dreams of growing his own catnip and setting up a distribution centre behind On the Spot. It seemed as though I was the only one who had nothing tangible that I particularly wanted. After everyone had gone home to have their tea, I started to panic. There were only a few hours to go before they were all back here, and I wondered if Whittaker would make each of us stand up individually and share our goals. What if I was the only one standing there with nothing to say? I already had what I wanted: a loving owner, wonderful group of supportive friends, a nice warm home, and a bowl that was never empty of delicious food. What more could I possibly want? I wouldn't mind a cat door, but then Ron would help himself to my delicious food, and a cat door didn't seem like a lofty enough goal to awaken my inner lion. Maybe I should just stand up and say that I'm perfectly happy with what I already have, and that the lion within can go on sleeping. But I knew that Whittaker was something of a legend in the village, and I wanted to have something a bit more profound than a cat door to contribute to the discussion. Although I was keen to meet Whittaker and hear what he had to say, I only picked up my dinner tonight. Everyone arrived on time, and Whittaker opened his talk by sharing the story of his brother Sarkozy, who died after being hit by a car outside their house when they were both little more than kittens. Serafina was in tears as Whittaker recounted the trauma of seeing it all happen, saying it was an ordeal that he doubted he would ever truly recover from. He told us how his naturally social personality had soon brought him out of his depression. I'd already heard that Whittaker had become a familiar face at the pub, the cafe, the rugby club, the library, and at the medical centre. He'd even been known to spend the occasional afternoon at the hairdresser's. I could have listened to his stories all night, but then he took us all out onto the road and said softly at first, then building up to a crescendo, "Are you ready to change your mindset? Are you willing to challenge one of your deepest fears? The dog walk will teach you how to take hardships in your stride instead of letting fear dictate your life. Take control of your life now, expand your outlook, and unleash the lion within." I gasped when I learned that this involved walking past the house a few doors up that was home to a large hunt-away dog. The property was fenced, but the challenge was to hold our heads high and to walk, not run, past the property. I started to panic. How secure was the fence? What if the dog got out? I'd recently had an up-close and personal encounter with that dog, and the unpleasant memory was still fresh in my mind. Squeak went first, and the dog looked at him as though he'd never seen a cat quite that large. Hypo walked past reasonably confidently, then looked through a gap in the fence afterwards to see if it had left any dog toys lying around. Ron did a sort of hop, skip and jump arrangement, causing the dog to give an enormous bark that sent me scurrying into the bushes for a nervous poo. Serafina walked past with her head held high in the air, then stopped right outside the gate and eyeballed it, as if to say, "Come on, sucker, make my day." Then it was my turn. Having had the benefit of watching everyone else, walking nonchalantly definitely seemed to be the best option. But because I'd gone last, the dog became bored with it and just yawned and went inside. I felt rather deflated, and my inner lion snored heavily. We went back under the house to do the bit that I was dreading, where we had to reveal our innermost aspirations and desires. Whittaker gestured to Seraphina to begin the discussion and listened as she recounted how she'd enlisted my help to set up SPUNC and the objectives that she hoped to achieve.
"That's great," said Whittaker, "and getting your brother involved was an excellent idea."
"Sorry?" said Seraphina, clearly puzzled by this. "I must have misunderstood. Did you just say getting your brother involved?"
"Of course," said Whittaker. "You and Weasley are perfect examples of—"
His voice trailed away as soon as he saw the look on both of our faces. We were staring at each other with open mouths and wide copper-coloured eyes. My eyes! Mother's eyes! Why hadn't I noticed this before? I knew I had a big brother called Winston from another litter, whom I'd met once or twice, but I never knew I had a little sister. Seraphina was obviously from a more recent litter than me, but I felt myself growing in stature. I was a big brother. This brought with it responsibility, family duty, concern. I needed to set an example, keep a watchful eye, pass on wisdom that only comes with age. A voice inside my head that sounded a lot like my big brother Winston declared,
"This is my finest hour."
"But Mother was a rag doll," said Seraphina, who was obviously still in shock. Clearly my first big brotherly duty would be to take her aside and put her straight on the birds and the bees.
"She was a cat,"
interjected Ron.
"Your mother was definitely a cat." "Lily, your mother, and Seraphina's mother, was a ragdoll Persian, and your father was a tabby cat," explained Whittaker. "I am sorry to have surprised you with this. I thought you both knew."
"Sorry?" I started to speak, but to my embarrassment I had a lump in my throat so big I could scarcely make a sound. Despite this, the lion within was now roaring triumphantly. Not only was I Seraphina's big brother, but I was also a Persian. Well, part Persian at least. Isn't it funny how the cat who was already happy with what they have ended up being given the most? Mused Hypo dreamily. Everyone was heading off home, including Seraphina. We needed to talk, but it was getting late, and we had plenty of time for that. "But he didn't actually give me anything," I said, though I knew exactly what she meant. "No, he gave you nothing that you didn't already have." Hypo was a bit of a flake, but I had to admit that she was right. She skipped back to a new home, and I went off to find Mummy and her dressing gown. I could not stop smiling, but the thing that made me smile the most was the ridiculous idea that just for a fleeting moment I had imagined that Seraphina would hang off every little nugget of wisdom that her big brother uttered. Fat chance! And that was the lion within. Sometimes it seems the things that we're searching for are already a part of us. But, as Weasley is about to discover, even the most profound realizations don't make life any less unpredictable. In the next episode, a shadow falls over the village, and the loss of someone unexpected leaves a mark that no amount of inner wisdom can quite prepare you for. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can follow The Diary of an Orange Cat on Spotify or your favourite podcast platform. It won't awaken the lion within, but it may, at the very least, keep your inner cat mildly entertained.